Mayor Barnett, can you please comment on the present financial state of the town of Magrath? Secondly, please outline your plans for the town to remain fiscally responsible and economically viable through your term. Once you've answered the question, Mr. Dish, you can take a few minutes.
Thank you. As of last meeting, we have about, $1.3 million. This is actually a little bit oval. $1.3 million in our account. We have not borrowed monies. We've been very fiscally responsible with your tax dollars. We live in the grant world in the town of Magrath. If it wasn't for grants, we do half the things we do. So we rely on them all the time. And we always have a plan going forward. And I want to tell Mr. Mayor that we have an infrastructure master plan. It's beautiful. It's color. It talks about every street and sidewalk that we have in the town of Magrath. So we do have plans going forward. And the municipal government requires that we have a 3-year plan always up in front.
Thank you. Last week I went up and got budget reports from the town, and they were very accommodating. I appreciate their help with that. What I saw was around the same numbers. For 2016, 1.5 million was budgeted. The glaring thing to me about the budget was the Municipal Reserve Fund. And the Municipal Reserve Fund is a fund that is designed to help developers, people that subdivide, reinvest into our community. Now, this document right here that the town of Magrath just passed into a bylaws, the municipal development plan, states that there's almost 300 subdivisions in the last 20 years. And if you take an average of, I don't know what the formula is, but if you took an average amount of $15,000 to $2,000, there should be $600,000 in an account for Parks and Recreation. There's not. There's only about 115 in 1 year, and I think 116 the next year. So to me that was concerning because that is amenities to our community. That's what that fund is to be used for. And to be so low, I was deeply concerned, and I thought, as we're trying to attract development and developers to come into our community, without a fund there, they're wondering where their money's going. They're wondering if we are a good investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, if we can hold our applause till after all have addressed the question, we should. Did you have a further comment on that municipal reserve?
Yes. Municipal reserve is money set aside at a subdivision, and it's a 10% contribution, whether that be land or dollars of value of the land. And there's a threshold, so not every subdivision requires municipal dollars given to the town for other monies in the bank or for recreation projects. And Mr. Nish is right. We tracked that the other night, as we knew what those dollars were, and we, by more, superseded the amount of municipal reserve dollars we've had over the years to recreation projects. It just hasn't been tracked the way it should be. So going forward, that is what we're going to do.
Okay. Ms. Beck, many concerns have come up in this election have been fueled due to public misinformation about town council's reason for long-term plans with Israel. How will you make information about the decisions town councils makes about budgets, special projects, and regulations more transparent to the general population?
That's a hard question. I don't know where the mic went. That's a really difficult question, and I'd like to pass it on to Mr. Godlington. Actually, I do have a lot of ideas about that because I think one thing that we have not achieved as well as I would like to see it achieved is letting the public know what is going on in a way that maybe they can see it. We're excellent. I can't tell you how excited I am about the things that we have accomplished. We put in our August newsletter that goes to every home, we did put a list of accomplishments that we have done. We've had public forums. We've had how many open houses where we've invited the community to come in and look at our plans. Somebody help me out here. I really think that the idea of putting our committee, or not our committee, our council meeting on YouTube is a great idea, because then people can see for themselves. We just haven't really thought about that, actually. It isn't that we chose not to do it, I don't think. But I would like to see an article in every newsletter that maybe states a little more clearly exactly what's going on. And we have tried in various ways to get people to come to forums and open houses, and it's amazing how few people come, even if we put something in everyone's mailboxes, put it on the town sign, etc. I'm going to say something that may make people just a little bit upset at me, and that's sort of how I roll. But citizens have a responsibility to be looking for what's going on as well. The opportunities are there if you just open your eyes, and that's kind of rude, but it's kind of true, I think. So, does that answer your question?
Did anybody else want to comment on that? Again, we only have time for one or two.
One comment I would make is that, yes, we can put things on YouTube, but it won't be 2 weeks after the meeting. The minutes have to pass before they be made public. Because if there's a mistake in them, you can't pass them on with a mistake. And the other one is that, if you want to go to YouTube, you're going to involve the same thing. If you're at the meeting, you'll know what's going on right now, but not for another 2 weeks so it can be made public. So the YouTube can't be presented tomorrow.
Could I say one more thing just quickly? One thing we talked about, this is a whole council decision, was that our agendas aren't put on soon enough because there's been concern that they're not completed, finalized, adopted agendas. So we did make the decision to make sure that council agendas go up as soon as they're made available to the councilors as well. That way the public could look and see, okay, these items are on the agenda. If you're interested in that, you're sure, welcome to come. That is one area that we did decide we needed to step up on.
Just a real quick comment, but I'll give Mr. Quick a minute.
This is actually one of my top things that I would insist on, and it's in my pamphlet. Some other ideas might be surveys, online surveys, having the town actually go door to door and contact special interest groups. It seems like I went to a meeting and I was shocked that everything had been discussed in camera and the motion was made and it was passed. We didn't even hear which committee it was that was talked about. When they went in camera, there was no forewarning before that happened. They said any amendments to the agenda, and that didn't happen. I mean, if all 6 councillors presented, 5 of them said I had in camera items. How come that wasn't brought up at the start of the meeting? They all knew they had something to go in camera. We are using in camera too much, in my opinion. Okay. There are special provisions to go in camera off the record, and I understand that, but for everyone that presented in committee to say I have something in camera, I was a little bit shocked the other day. Thank you.
I can thank Brenda for taking what I was going to say about the agendas, and I think that's a great idea.
I read it off his notes.
Just to respond briefly, we've tried to look at taping meetings and everything so that the minutes are recorded properly and everything. And according to our lawyers, they are so worried about FOIP and everything else that for a short time until we get that straightened out, we have decided that we will carry on the way it's been for the last 100 years. But anyway, going forward, I'm sure they're looking at doing some changes. But I rest assured, everything that comes before council, and on the agenda, there's some in-camera things that have to be in camera. There is no motions, no votes, no anything made in camera. They come out of camera and they're made in a public meeting, either later that day or the next meeting. Nothing is voted on in camera.
Thank you. Mr. Nish, what are your thoughts on the future use of the old library building, and how do you plan to involve the citizens of Magrath in this decision?
Thank you for that question. You know, the whole process of the library thing, it's done now. I didn't agree with the process that happened. I could have been much more open to the public. What are we going to do with it now, was the question. Well, I would hope that, again, we do some public consultation. We go out and we actually, if people aren't interested, I don't think that's the case. I think that we have had 300 people sign petitions and do things. We need to talk with these people. We need to find out what they want to have happen with the library building. A lot of people contribute to this building, and you know, donations help build that building, and it's a wonderful building in our community. I personally would like to see some kind of a community center. I'd like to see different things happen. I was told 4.5 years ago in a staff meeting that town hall would move to that building and that the emergency services would move into the town building. And so I hope we have a chance to change something, but I'm kind of guessing that that's been decided quite some time ago. Thanks.
DeVar.
Is that working? Okay. The whole process with the library came quite suddenly with the citizens group, and so we had just a short time to decide how much support we would give it. And I can just say that it has not been decided that it's going to be the town hall. That's a lot of people speculate that that's the case. That isn't the case, and I'm in favor of us having public forums and giving the proper time to decide what is the best use of it. Personally, as a town council, I said I don't find that our town council work is hindered at all where we are. And so, do we need to move into that building? I'd have to learn something new to convince me, but right now, I'm in favor of having public forums, seeing what the citizens of the town want to do with the building, and not speculate and say, oh, it's already been decided, or it's just, it's going to be the town hall. We don't know that. We don't know that, and I can assure that I can promise you that's the case.
Thank you. I'm going to move on in the interest of time, but Mr. DeMar, knowing and you might be able to tie your comment into this, knowing the funds are limited that are available for community development projects, how would you go about finding more dollars?
Yes, funds are limited. We've got a huge project, lack of infrastructure in every street practically, and we don't have any money. I don't think we've done a good enough job getting grants from the government. I think we need to pursue that aggressively. I think we need to make infrastructure a priority in our budget and on our agenda, and it needs to just be a priority. We need to identify all the needs and start with the low-hanging fruit. If we need to put lights in the neighborhood, on the street, let's do it. It's not that expensive. Let's start somewhere and just get some progress and some. Yeah.
Mr. Burnett, you want to address? Mr. Burnett address it.
You know, one of the most disheartening things that ever happened, my first year as a mayor, we went up to a planning session. We identified all the projects going into the town. We listed them, we got all the stars, we decided to see which is the most important, and then we identified those. And then we talked about the budget. And Marty, our town accountant, said $53,000 to spend that year. We bought brown paint, because that's Lenny's favorite color, and some new brushes, and he painted some things in town. Literally, that was our budget that year. So, when you talk about getting more dollars or dollars from somewhere, we utilize our budget to the very best of our ability and do, I think, more than what most people get of what we have.
Okay. Mr. Vanny. Oh,
I was going to say,
I have a question for you. Magrath Family and Community Support Services seems to have far less programs than towns of comparable size. What factors are impacting the number of programs and services provided in Magrath?
Well, the services that are provided in Magrath is the ones that we could afford. The FCS funding comes from Edmonton, and we have to contribute 20% of that funding. And then it's discussed amongst council, what are the services that we're going to provide, and that's the way it is. There's so many dollars. If we want to provide more services, we need to come up with more money, and where we get more money is from these people. And it's been decided by council over the years not to do that.
Any further comments on that? Mr. Dow?
Yes, I'm the town councillor assigned to FCSS, and it is always a challenge, and we have to assess what does the town need, what will be best for the town. In our community, we have control over the funding. If we were part of a larger group, you turn your funding over to them, and then a large, distant kind of council decides what you can and can't do. And so it has been the position of the Magrath Town Council and FCSS program to keep it at our level. We felt that's the best. I'll have to say at this time, there's been a lot of interest expressed in other programs and seeing what we can do. And so, in all fairness, we need to examine that and see what, and assess what will be best for the town. And that's what we'll do.
Thank you. Mr. Nish, there are questions and concerns about possible conflicts of interest with your land and the drainage pond. If you become mayor and something comes up in meetings that would put you in conflict, how would you handle that?
So, what I'm understanding, can you just read that again? Conflicts between me and the drainage pond.
Of course, I didn't write these questions, they were submitted. There are questions and concerns about possible conflicts of interest with your land and the drainage pond. If you become mayor and something comes up in meetings that would put you in a conflict, how will you handle that?
So I'm assuming that this question is referring to the land east of the Ball Diamond, brought up by the whole town council. Maybe that's where that's originating on Facebook. So I just wrote down a few facts. One, yes, I do own that land. I bought it off my brother-in-law, JR, because he was tired of all the conflict with it and wanted to be done with it. And so I sold him my land in Spring Coulee, and I bought this down here. He sold this to me, so we kind of traded. That would have been the last couple of years. Fact one, I have several facts with this. So, with the drainage pond originally, we were to sell the town 10 acres. And we approached each other, I believe it was in May of 2016. And we agreed on the price of $10,000 per acre for 10 acres, and they wanted to put a large pond down at the northeast end. So that's a fact. Okay, I don't think anyone will dispute that here. Fact two, our negotiations for the plan ended on July 16, 2016 was the last time I got a letter from Brenda Beck. The reason that this deal fell through and basically it stopped was back in 2011 there was an annexation agreement with a lot of members on this council, and I was told under I don't want to say distress, but under pressure at the end of the year, we need to get this in before the end of the year, or they'll have to wait a whole other year. Would you please sign this letter of request or consent, whatever you want to use, to bring this land into the town so that we can all have a win-win-win. Okay? And so I did, because I was told, please act in good faith by Rick Duncan was his name, from Municipal Affairs. And so that's what I was doing. I thought I was working in good faith. So that happened. I signed the agreement. They presented an annexation order, and it happened. And I was into the town. But the town never signed the agreement. They felt that they didn't need to. I was told by Brendan Beck that this was an oversight when we started talking about the pond. So if there is a conflict of interest, I have nothing to do with the pond myself. The deal fell through, and they went to Alberta Transportation. On that 16th of July, I was told they had found something else, and I was excited because I had pledged to them, I will give back the $100,000 to you to support Magrath. I will give you another $100,000 for the first 20 lots I sell, so I was going to give the town $200,000 to do this. That wasn't good enough. So as far as conflict of interest, it is for sale. It's been for sale for 7 months. Please, someone come and buy it.
Ms. Beck, if you can give a quick response.
There isn't a quick response because it's much more complex than that. Mr. Nish, who I respect a great deal, has forgotten the agreement that he signed with Mr. Barnett as the mayor. There was a portion that his lawyer brought back later that is unsigned. If we, as a town council, had signed that agreement, I think we would have been run out of town because it is really untenable. If you want to know more about that, I'm sure that our mayor would be happy to discuss it with you. I absolutely was a believer in the development that Mr. Nish's father-in-law brought forward. I thought, what an amazing opportunity for our town. And so I was really excited about it. And I do really respect Brett and what they're trying to do there. So I don't want to make this a negative thing. If I've done something that is deemed inappropriate, I will certainly face up to it and correct that mistake. But I don't think I've done anything incorrect at this point.
We've got 2 more small things.
We're going to move on. If anybody does have any further questions, I'd invite you to direct them to Mr. Nish or the mayor. Mr. Godlington, I understand the previous council was opposed to not renewing the peace officer services with our town. What is your view on these services, and do you support the peace officer program in Magrath?
Somehow I knew this might come up, or would come up, but no, I haven't been in favor of the peace officer program in town. I have not been in favor of it in the 2 terms I've been on council, and this term happens to be a different contract with a different group of people. The last time it turned out the same way, unfortunately, and that gave me a sour taste in my mouth. This one seems to be the same. The majority of everything that they seem to want to do is turn in be traffic cops, and that is not what we need in this community. And by doing that, the RCMP are not doing their job that they're paid for by the government to do, because we have these officers hired, and it's just not right. I was against it then. I'm against it now. I'm not against having peace officers for enforcing bylaws, but unfortunately, bylaws are not being enforced, or they're not being enforced to a point where we have resolution to them. So in lieu of that, let's go write a whole bunch of tickets and make everybody mad. And these aren't tickets that are really deserved and dangerous tickets. These are small incomes. They're not warranted, in my opinion.
Mr. Barrow?
As a member of council that's assigned to the bylaw officers committee, one of the challenges we face is that we are short of the RCMP, and that is a known fact. They are undermanned and understaffed in all areas of Alberta. So our bylaw officers are trying to pick up some of that slack, and I agree that we as a community try to have them enforce bylaws as their primary focus. And we probably talked about traffic in front of the school, and maybe at the Main Street corner by the post office where everybody sees too much that U-turn and pull into the post office. Those were the 2 areas that we asked them to focus on traffic. But they haven't done that. they have focused on traffic and not bylaws. And we did discuss ending their term. And as a council, it was decided that that was kind of unfair for us to make that decision that was going to affect our council of tomorrow. We had to give them an answer so they could put in their money. So we have a 1 year notice, we have to give a 1 year notice. So one of the things that may come up in the next 2 months before the end of this year is that we will give notice that we aren't going to renew our contract. And that's really where it's at. We felt last year, we did it in the middle of July, that our new council was going to come in and lose it without having a chance to make that decision themselves. So we held it for 1 more year.
I would just respond. I have a short answer. First of all, I hate to say I agree with Greg Godlington, but gosh almighty, you know, I read a 38-page document that was sent to us, all as councillors, as to what the bylaw officers have done. I'm sure Mr. Barrow has read that as well. About a third of it is bylaw, and they've responded every time the town has called or a citizen has called about dogs, about different things. They've responded. If they just take the word peace officer and put bylaw officer on their truck, I'd be so happy, but they're not. They're super excited about giving tickets, and that's all I gotta say. I kind of agree with it.
Thank you. Mr. Olin, what is the council's plan on the Starfield greenhouse project? After 4 years of no visible progress, are we still renting it for free?
Are you there? Right, okay. The town leased Starfield, the property, for $1 a year. We put in provisions that they had to accomplish a certain amount of progress in 5 years. That 5 years isn't up yet. The progress that they have done is probably not what the town would like to see so far. But until, I guess their term is up and they haven't totally committed to all of the agreements, there's not much that the town can do.
Any further comments on that?
Yes, I was wondering, I've been hearing the word about money, taxes, but when we talk about what is the town doing to bring funds to the table, it's only taxes. Why is it only taxes? We're in need of several things here in town, and we not create something that brings money to the town that is owned by the town. We have a lot of roads that need repair. There's a lot of gravel that's going to go in there, and we not just get a pit, provide for that, and provide somebody else's from that pit. We need lights. We need power. We can get rebates by the providers if we provide our own power. We have our dam close here that can produce some of the power that is needed. There is businesses that they want to come in. Why is it that it takes 5 years for a company or whatever business to put his business in here in town? We need to give them opportunity, every available source that they can bring their businesses here. There are going to be jobs in here, and there's going to be development in here, there's going to be funds, not only from the residents, but from those businesses as well. Thank you.
Any further comments on that? Mr. Barrow, in your opinion, will the expansion of the no animal zone influence the town's decisions to put services in certain areas of town? Will this provide an unfair advantage to landowners wishing for development in other areas of town? Do you feel that this practice is fair to all private landowners?
First off, probably the town, in most cases, doesn't put services into any area until there's a demand for it and a need because of the cost. We are doing some deep sewer right now in areas that that the town is providing right now. And so we're looking at the no animal zone area, and primarily we're trying to protect some areas that we are mandated by the government, the provincial government, to try and get more density on our population, that we don't have 1 acre lots or 5 acre lots or 10 acre lots in the town, that we try and, so we're shooting to try to get approximately 5 or 6 residents per acre is what the government's trying to do, and we're saying probably 4. So it's still going to be the quarter acre lots, which is our normal size of our size of land. But in order to do that, to try and get those pieces of land that are developable, where there is sewer or is going to be water and stuff available close by, then you want to restrict it. You don't bring in a horse or other animals in those areas, because once they're there, it's hard to remove them. So the animal zone area is a major. The town is not, at this point, isn't putting services in for anybody. We were discussing it, trying to figure a way of getting more money put into that, but so far we haven't come up with a plan, because first off, we don't have the money, and secondly, then it would be unfair to the others. If we were to put services in from one neighborhood at our cost, and then not pass it on to the whole community, that makes the other land developer a little bit short. So we haven't figured a way around that yet, and maybe we're looking at different things to try and spread it out. Maybe they come up with half, we come up with half, and see if that works, but just different ways of trying to develop it.
Further comments, Mr. Morales?
I agree that there should be impact fees to every street or neighbors, that they get some kind of benefit from the resources that are brought out from the town. But a lot of those services also, they're responsibility of the town. Now, there's only so many X amount of funds available to implement those services. So as a town, we need to decide what is it we want to do. Do we want to have smaller lots, bigger lots? The bigger lots are going to be less taxes, but it's going to remain the town the way we have right now. We want smaller towns, smaller lots, so we have more taxes. Is that the only thing that we're thinking about here? A lot of the times, when we think about development of the land, there are impacts not only to the owners that they're in there, that they're living, that they're moving in that area, but the whole community is being affected. So once again, we need to plan ahead of time and hold those people accountable for what they say that they're going to develop. There have to be the same rules to everybody that wants to develop a land. If they're developing a street, there have to be ways to develop and leave the streets the way the rest of the town is willing and want to keep that land available. If the streets are not put in place, or the utilities are not in place, then everybody's going to be thinking that that's the way to do land development in the town, and that is not the case.
I think the question is around the no animal zone. And every once in a while, administration doesn't do you a favor. They took a wide-tipped highlighter and ran a big strip, and you saw it probably on the website where we wanted to change the no animal zone. The reason behind that was, did it make sense to allow animals still where there's concentrated development? In loungers, there still allows for animals to be in there, and that's what we call lounger development. Does that make sense to have animals still in there? You know, it's right full. And does it make sense to have animals where there's deep services available as well? That was sort of the rationale behind that. But as a council, we decided this is not a decision we're going to make, so we put it out as a public question. We got lots of response, and the response has been sort of overwhelmingly, don't touch it. So we haven't made a decision on that. Thank you.
Since we're talking about animals, and I know Mr. DeMar already addressed this to a degree, but to the mayoral candidates, what do you plan to do about the overabundance of deer in Magrath?
Eat them.
Deer is a 4-letter word. And we do 3 things currently. We wrote the minister and said we'd like to do 3 things. 1, will you allow us to have an extended season or a quota hunt late in the year like we have before? The answer is no. We said, would you do a special zone, a 108A zone around the town of Magrath, allow some more hunting in that area, concentrated area? They said no. We said, how about you increase the amount of doe tags that are harvested during the regular season? They said no. So the Queen owns the deer. We've decided they're difficult to try and do anything with. We've talked about spaying them. Council Albright, I think, has got it right. We have them laying on the ground, tranquilizing to spay them. We should really take care of them. However, most people do not want to see the deer dead. Moving them is extremely expensive, so that's not much of an option. And so we're still discussing what to do with the deer, and it's a complex thing. Also, if we were to spay the deer, they would require a deer tag in each one of them, saying that the meat could not be harvested or used, and it's a $50,000 permit from Health Canada to allow us to do that. So there are 3-year supply, I think.
Stuck with the deer. Mr. Dow, what is your environmental stance? In particular, where do you stand on regulation of town irrigation water, on recyclables being thrown out with trash, and on changing the unsightly lawn bylaw to allow residents to grow longer native grasses as part of their outdoor aesthetic? Can you also comment on renewable energy?
Okay, thanks.
Another minute and a half.
Okay, I'm all for recycling. Recycle whatever you can. We have a recycling center. I personally don't like to see the excessive use of poison that gets into the water system. I'd be devastated if somebody poisoned those frogs, I'll tell you. But I also, I don't like to see, you know, I don't want to see us polluting water. It's important. That was a long question. What were the other ones?
Talk about the recyclables thrown out with trash, regulation on irrigation water, and longer grasses, native grasses be long.
All right, well, I have no problem with longer grass either. I like just natural grass. I think the idea about the water is, I had somebody ask me this, would we be inclined to promote zero watering, lawns? In other words, take out the grass and put in rocks and gravel and stuff like that. I don't think as a town we can mandate that. I know that in Las Vegas they have paid people large amounts of money to take out their own, take out lawns, and so it doesn't. But no, I think as citizens we all need to do our part. Don't throw garbage in your garbage, or don't throw cardboard in your garbage. There's a way to recycle that. Don't just take all your glass bottles and put them in the garbage can. If everybody did a little bit, it would help. I'm worried about Halloween. The day after Halloween, our dump is full of pumpkins, and we need a way to recycle or process those and just throw them away. So, but as far as the town being able to mandate that, I don't think we can. I'm just hoping that the citizens have make good choices in what they do.
Yes, I agree with everything Councillor Dallas said. Just to elaborate a little bit more about the water system, we happen to be a community that's just extremely blessed because we have irrigation water, which most communities don't have in town. We should be very proud of that. On the other hand, we are unable, it's not an endless supply. We don't have an unlimited supply for everybody every minute of the day. And it frustrates people because they say, well, we paid for it, we should be able to get it whenever we want. It's a great idea, it's not practical. But what does happen, and the town tries their very, very best, we put different pumping systems in, we put variable frequency drive pumps in, we've done everything to try to save and give and things. But what we don't take into consideration, that the public doesn't, is that the water that comes to us, before it gets to us, is supplying farmers in the area. Now they're entitled to theirs, but unfortunately flooding is still a practice that is being used, and when flooding is done out of town or lots of pivots and things are going, we don't get enough water to our pressure pumps. So the old adage, you can't pump it if you can't get it. And that does happen. It's hit and miss, but the town is trying their very, very best, and I applaud the public works people and Trevor Albert and those folks, because they do an awesome job.
I'll be over 4 years ago, I went to a municipal planning meeting at the Lethbridge Lodge and met with Bridget Pastor. Greg Reed was there to talk about reading the Municipal Government Act. A few people were there. It was an exciting meeting. One of the things that they talked about was they went around the table asking people what they would change in the Municipal Government Act. And one gal, her comment really stuck out to me. She said, we have a municipal reserve. We also need an environmental reserve. Meaning that when someone develops a spot is set aside or land is set aside to make recycling more convenient. She thought if recycling was convenient, people would do it more. And you know, it kind of stuck out to me. Is it convenient? Like, we have a facility, but is it that convenient for us to do it? I'm thankful we have it, but I do think we could do more to make it more convenient for our taxpayers in the community. The water issue, you know, someone's metering it somewhere, and we learned when we had meters put on our homes that we use less water. As a whole, I believe the town realized, hey, we're saving on how much water is going through our lines. I know the MID, they have, what I'm assuming is they have some kind of a domestic agreement with each household, and it might not be feasible to meter each home, but I'm assuming they could meter different lines coming